see what it's all about.
Because we live in the area.
Which one? Oh, okay.
Oh, here.
The checkpoint aluminum area.
Oh, for checkpoint, that's actually, so I would tell you that.
Because
You're right.
it's this checkpoint subdivision.
Yep, and they postponed it. So they're revising that. So I would tell you, we will send out, new public hearing notices when they bring the revised plan. I'm actually glad you didn't sit through the rest of the hearing. and
Yeah.
wait for that, so. Yeah, that is one
Because
of the
the rest of the hearing has been meeting on different ones.
different cases, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, I'm glad you came over.
Out of your evening. Yes, we will send out public hearing notices, and then we'll have the opportunity to come back in and testify.
We just want to find out what's happening in our neighborhood, that's all.
Yeah, I mean, on that one, they're putting in multifamily. It's a multifamily development.
Yeah.
And you probably know kind of what's happening around there with both those doing their.
Yeah, it's moved on a whole.
Spinell's doing a similar kind of deal there, and as part of that, they have to come and do a platting action.
Okay.
And the platting action requires.
Oh.
But we'll send out new public hearing notices.
Okay.
If you wanted to call, if you had specific questions about what we're doing, you can always call me in the office.
Okay.
All right?
Okay. Just wanted to see how we're going to provide this up.
I would be happy to provide that to you. Unfortunately, because the case is being postponed, they haven't submitted a new plat. I don't have it available to me.
Okay.
But if you want to give me a call, I'd be happy to let you know as soon as I get it. I can give you a copy.
You want this?
I'm not actually, if you'd like, I can.
Yeah. Flat surface. Okay.
That's my office number.
Okay.
Give me a shout, I'd be happy to.
Great, thanks.
Okay? Thanks.
Mr. Abel,
Here.
Mr. Young,
Present.
Mr. Cole, Mr. Edmondson,
Here.
Mr. Walker,
Here.
Ms. Enix. Here. Mr. Porter,
Here.
Mr. Cross,
Here.
and Ken Fuller is excused.
We have a quorum. And are there any agenda changes? Okay. Next, we'll move on to approvals. First item of business is the action summaries, Wednesday, April 1st, 2015. Do I hear a motion to approve the action summary? Trevor Edmondson moves, and Dan Young seconds. Is there any opposition to approval of the action summary? Seeing none, the motion passes. Next item of business is the minutes from Wednesday, April 1st, 2015. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Daniel Young moves and Trevor Edmondson seconds the motion. Are there any amendments or changes to the draft minutes? Is there any opposition to approving the minutes? Seeing none, the minutes are accepted as filed. We'll turn now to the special order of business, and the first item of those is disclosures. Are there any disclosures?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
in the case of S12048, Spruce Hollow subdivision lots 1 through 21, my firm has conducted business with the petitioner's representative on other projects. My firm also has ongoing relations with the petitioner. We have no involvement in this project. I have no financial or personal interest in the matters before the board, can remain impartial in fact and action as a member of this board without personal bias. My past involvement and personal interests will not prevent me from fairly evaluating the facts of this case. And I also wish to disclose that I have worked with the petitioner's representative. Well, I guess I did disclose that. So both the petitioner's representative and the petitioner.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Do I hear a motion to directing Mr. Young to participate in case S12048? Dan Porter moves, and Trevor Edmondson seconds. Would you please state your motion?
Since Mr. Young has stated that he has no financial obligation toward him, and he's able to render an impartial decision, I move that we direct him to participate.
Thank you. Are there any additional findings? Kevin Cross.
Yes, I'd like to disclose that
1 minute, we still have the motion on the floor yet. Is there any opposition to Mr. Young's participation in case S12048? Seeing none, Director, Mr. Young, you are directed to participate in case S12048. Mr. Cross.
Thank you. I'd like to disclose that my real estate business has conducted, regarding case number S12048, Spruce Hollow subdivision, lots 1 through 21. I'd like to disclose that my real estate company has done business in the past with Andrew Spinelli and the developer, but I have no financial obligation, no interest in this particular lot, and feel that I can make a clear and free judgment regarding this case.
Thank you. Is there a motion directing Mr. Cross to participate in case S12048? Brent Cole moves, and Dan Young seconds. Mr. Young, would you state the motion? Cole? Sorry.
Yes, I am moving Mr. Cross to participate. I'm doing that in part based on his testimony or his statement that he has no present economic involvement in this particular matter, that his only connection is through other work, and that he's not involved in this particular development, which I believe meets the requirements under our code.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any opposition to having Mr. Cross participate in this matter? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. Mr. Cross, you're directed to participate in case S12048. Are there any other disclosures? Next, we'll turn to informational items. And these are abbreviated plat action summaries for March 31st, 2015, April 20th, 2015, and April 27th, 2015. There is no consent agenda for tonight and no old business, so we will now turn to new business. And the first case to come before us is case S12048, Spruce Hollow subdivisions, lots 1 through 21. May we have staff's presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This preliminary plat is a request for subdivision of one lot into 21 lots with the vacation of 3 feet of a 33-foot patent roadway reserve located along the south and west property boundaries dedicated by Book 155, page 194, accepting that portion dedicated by this plat to right-of-way. The petition site is zoned R1, single-family residential district. Each lot within this proposed subdivision meets the minimum lot size and width required by the R1 zoning. Miranda Drive is required to be constructed to municipal standards, consisting of a 30-foot wide paved street from its current terminus at Miranda Drive to Spruce Street. Spruce Creek Circle is being dedicated with this platting action, and the petitioner is required to construct Spruce Creek Circle to municipal standards, also consisting of a 30-foot wide paved street, back of curb to back of curb. The non-motorized transportation coordinator has requested 2 10-foot walkway easements connecting to future walkways along East 72nd Avenue and Spruce Street. However, staff believes that a single 10-foot wide pedestrian easement and walkway located between lots 13 and 14 would better serve the neighborhood. So we're only requesting one walkway there. The property is encumbered by environmental features. It's affected by Class C wetlands, undesignated wetlands, and a drainage and stream feature. The petitioner is working with the Army Corps of Engineers and Watershed Management services to resolve issues associated with the rerouting of the drainage stream feature that's located, that basically bisects the property. Currently, the petitioner is in the process of seeking Corps approval for the rerouting of this feature, and approval will be contingent. Approval of this plat will be contingent on receiving that approval from the Corps. The petitioner is also requesting, as I stated before, to vacate 3 feet of a patent reserve, roadway reserve. The vacation must meet the minimum requirements of the municipal vacation policy, and the property, it's found to meet the, or to conform to the municipal vacation policy. The property adjoins East 72nd Avenue to the south and Spruce Street to the west, which are classified as neighborhood collector roads. Neighborhood collector roads with daily traffic between 2,000 and 10,000 trips require a minimum of 60-foot right-of-way. With this plat, the petitioner is dedicating 30 feet of the 33-foot roadway reserve to right-of-way. This dedication provides for the minimum right-of-way width necessary for these roadways. Generally, reviewing agencies have had either no comment or no objection to this vacation request. Access to adjoining property is provided by dedicated and constructed right-of-way. Traffic circulation will not be adversely affected by this vacation, and thus the 3-foot remainder of the 33-foot roadway reserve appears to be access to municipal need. So that, with that being said, staff would like to recommend approval of the vacation request and the plat for 18 months, subject to the conditions listed on pages 9, 10, and 11 of your staff packet, with a couple of minor changes. And I'll go slowly for you so that the board has the time to write this down if they need to. Under condition B4, I would like to strike, and I'll read it to you. The condition should state, enter into a subdivision agreement with private development for the required public urban area improvements for Spruce Creek Circle, Miranda Drive, and the pedestrian pathways between lots 13 and 14. Note that the change is from is to require the pathway between lots 13 and 14. The condition should state also that these improvements may include, but are not limited to, paved streets, curbs and gutters, walkways, street lighting, traffic control devices, monuments, drainage facilities, utilities, and any traffic section improvement requirements. The second change should be made to condition 15C, which requires a plat note with regard to the wetlands. Staff would like to amend that condition to state, resolve with the planning section the need for a plat note stating, and then the plat note as stated in C. Staff would also like to make one correction to the staff report with regard to public comments. With this application, we only received 2 comments. As it's stated in the staff report that 15 comments were received. However, there were only 2, and they were provided to you as lay on the table items tonight. So with that being said, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Do members of the board have any questions for staff? Thank you. Daniel Young?
Yes, Mr. Whitfield, would you mind going over again item number 15C on page 11? It was resolved with planning section.
Through the chair, Mr. Young, yes, essentially what I'd like to do here is make that plat note a resolve comment. So what I'd like to say is resolve with the planning section the need for a plat note stating exactly what the plat note says. The plat contains map wetlands according to the Anchorage Wetlands Management Plan 2014. Prior to any disturbance within the wetlands, authorization is required from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers regulatory branch. Activities requiring authorization include, but are not limited to, clearing, grubbing, excavation, grading or placement of fill, end quote.
Thank you.
Mr. Cross.
Excellent. Under your department recommendation, B9, the right-of-way dedication along the southwest corner of the subdivision along lots 12 and 13 should be radial. Are you referring to the corner that looks like it's on the intersection of Spruce and 72nd, that we're going to arch that out, where you've got your 15-foot drainage easement? Is that correct? B9, right-of-way dedication along southwest corner of the subdivision along lots 12 and 13, so that's a corner lots.
Through the chair, Mr. Cross, that will be the 12 and 13 as it rounds East 72nd onto Spruce Street.
Yeah, so just where our plan shows it, our as-built shows it being squared off, we're going to put a radial arch on that.
That's correct.
Okay, is there intention to connect Spruce and 72nd at a future date?
Well, it's a bit premature to say whether or not that road will be constructed. I mean, there's some topography there that may make development of that right-of-way challenging.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with that. It's got a decent slope right there.
But it could happen in the future. When that may be, to be honest with you, I couldn't tell you.
No, that's fine. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And Trevor Edmondson.
Through the chair, Mr. Whitfield, condition number 10, on page 10, dedicate drainage easements along the south and west property boundary of at least 10 feet on either side of the drainage way. The easements should correspond to the Corps of Engineers approval. I have just a point of clarification with the comment on page 106 by street maintenance, saying that the drainage easements need to be expanded to not less than 20 feet wide. 10-foot wide easements are not accessible. Can you maybe these are talking to two different conditions. Maybe it's a point of clarification for me, or if they are talking to the same condition, could you tell me how that was derived at to be different than what street maintenance has asked for?
Through the chair, Mr. Edmondson, they are speaking to the same condition. Basically, street maintenance is asking for a 20-foot wide easement. The way that the condition is written is it provides for 10 feet on either side of the drainage, which in total is 20 feet. So the net result is the same, a 20-foot easement that would span the drainage as it's relocated.
Okay, thanks. And then also on condition 4, can you explain to me why you're making the revision on condition 4?
Through the chair, Mr. Edmondson, yes. Essentially, staff believes that the non-motorized transportation coordinator's requirement for 2 pedestrian pathways at the end of the cul-de-sac is a little bit excessive. Staff believes that 1 pedestrian pathway connecting onto 72nd is ample, and because of that, we simply are correcting that 1 condition to only provide the pathway between lots 13 and 14 rather than lots 12 and 13 and 14 and 15. Sorry.
Great, thank you.
Don Porter.
Yes, through the chair. Speaking of the 10-foot drainage easement along lots 21 through 15, you're saying that there is another 10-foot drainage easement along 21 through 15?
Through the chair, Mr. Porter, no. What I'm stating is that they need to provide in total a 20-foot drainage easement along the south property boundary and the west property boundary as they relocate the drainage feature.
So I see, on the plat, I see a 10-foot. Where's the other 10 feet going to be?
Basically, the petitioner has offered a 10-foot easement. The municipality would like to see a 20-foot easement.
And so you're recommending it be 20 feet?
Correct. So in addition, an additional 10 feet to what they're proposing.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. I do have one other question. So I see on lot 6 that it's squared off, whereas lot 1 right across the street is radial. Could you tell me if that seems a little odd to you, or?
Well, through the chair, Mr. Porter, it does appear to be a little bit odd to me. However, you know, the engineers that reviewed this, the traffic department, private development, didn't require that to be radial. And I don't feel like, as a planner, you know, I have the expertise necessary to determine whether or not it should be radial. This is the proposed plat offered by the petitioner. If the board decided that a radial, that the lot line should be radial there, well, then they could require that. But that was not offered in the comments by private development or traffic.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for staff? Kevin?
My question goes to, we were discussing that 10-foot easement on either side. So we've got one on the east and west. You're recommending a 20-foot. Do we know if there's an easement or setback on, looks like Miranda Drive? There's some properties that back up to lots 21 through 15. Is there an easement on the back end of those properties, and then they abut each other, that would give address some of the concern for a wider easement? I see we got a 10-foot on lots 15 through 20, and likewise, you know, 6 through 12. If we want a wider easement, do we know if there's an easement on the Miranda Drive properties that back up to that would accommodate?
Through the chair, Mr. Cross, I think we're talking about relocating a drainage feature that exists on the property. And the location of the drainage feature, the petitioner is requesting to relocate that drainage feature along the south and west property boundary. So there will be no drainage feature along the east property boundary.
Oh, okay.
So there will be no need for a drainage easement there, simply along the south and west property boundaries.
Excellent. Thank you for that clarification. I guess I was looking at that map, and for some reason, I was thinking with the amount of wetlands or the amount of, with what's been designated there, the amount of moisture that we've got along that 21 through 15, I was given the impression that there was some sort of drainage in that area. But thank you.
The new Title 21 applies to this project?
Mr. Chairman, no, the new Title 21 does not apply to this project. With every application that comes into the planning department, they are required to choose which code they want to go under, the old or new. The petitioner chose the old code. However, in this particular situation, considering the relocation of the drainage way, it seems appropriate that a 20-foot drainage easement is dedicated.
In the old code, only 10 feet would be required?
You know, I don't know exactly what the old code would require, but street maintenance and, I mean, I could look at the code, but street maintenance and watershed management are requesting that a 20-foot easement be dedicated here to essentially address their concerns with the rerouting of that drainage way.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay.
So on that drainage way, so we're looking at a 20-foot drainage way. Have they given any indication as to, is this just going to be an open ditch?
Through the chair, Mr. Porter, the exact design, I think, is probably, and that question is probably better directed to the petitioner's representative as to exactly what they are doing. As I understand it, it will be a ditch. Further detail would probably better be explained by the petitioner's representative.
Okay, the reason I was asking, I just wanted to see how much input had the Department of Public Works, say, had given to you on the 20-foot. So
I understand that they've submitted an application with the Army Corps of Engineers to reroute that drainage feature, and it is in a ditch, as I understand. But beyond that, they would probably have to answer.
thank you.
Are there any additional questions? Now that the staff presentation is complete, we'll open up the public hearing on these items. The public testimony may be presented. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the Commission Rules of Procedure. Petitioners and their representatives have 10 minutes. They may reserve part of their time for rebuttal. Representatives of groups, community councils, PTAs, they each have 5 minutes. Individuals have 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you will be asked questions by the board. You may only testify once on any issue unless the board questions you. When you come forward, please state your name and spell your last name for the record. Thank you.
Oh, ready to go. Good evening. My name is Tom Dreyer. Last name is spelled like the ice cream, D-R-E-Y-E-R.
And we want to reserve any time.
I would like to reserve 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board,
Yes.
planning staff, and concerned members of the public. My name is, as I said, is Tom Dreyer. I'm with the S4 group. And with me tonight, engineering backup, Mr. Dave Grenier of Triad Engineering, Mr. Brandon Marcotte of Triad Engineering, and Robin Reich of Solstice Alaska Consulting. We presented this case to the Abbott Loop Community Council on March 26, 2015, and received a few comments back. It was kind of the normal realm of comments that we see at community councils. Title 2175-010 specifies 11 different conditions that are required for the platting authority to approve a preliminary plat, and I'd like to go through those 11 conditions. Number 1, Spruce Hollow conforms to Chapter 21.75 through 2185 in all manners. Conformance to these chapters is regulated by the MOA Community Planning and Development Department with their review of the specifics of the plat and the engineered development plans of the improvements such as roads, utilities, street lighting, storm drainage systems, sewer and water systems, and other requirements of code and the Platting Board conditions of approval. Number 2, Spruce Hollow promotes the public health, safety, and welfare by providing public sewer and public water systems to each home, by providing MOA streets that are built to rigorous standards to support heavy fire trucks, are designed for optimal police and fire protection access, by providing street lighting for vehicular and pedestrian safety, and home foundation protection by providing storm drainage, overflow systems, and footing drains where necessary. Number 3, Spruce Hollow mitigates the incompatibilities between the land uses or residential densities in the subdivision and the land uses and residential densities in the surrounding neighborhood, including but not limited to visual, noise, traffic, and environmental effects by complying with all applicable zoning, land uses, and land densities. The areas surrounding this parcel are also zoned R1 and have been built with similar density levels and land uses as Spruce Hollow. Visual, noise, traffic, and environmental effects are the same for this subdivision as they are for the surrounding developments.
Number 4, Spruce Hollow provides for the proper arrangement of streets in relation to existing or proposed streets by logically arranging the streets to connect into Miranda Drive to the east and Fergie Circle and Spruce Street to the west. Number 5, provides for adequate and convenient open space. Adequate and convenient open space is ensured by Title 21 building height and building lot coverage standards. In R1 zoning, 70% of each lot must remain free of any buildings or structures. 6, provides for the efficient movement of vehicular and pedestrian traffic by designing the roads to connect disparate sections of vehicular traffic flows from the east and to the west. This allows traffic to flow northerly on Spruce Street to connect into East 68th Avenue. 7, ensures adequate and properly placed utilities by providing underground public sewer, water, natural gas, telephone cable, and electric services to each lot. 8, provides access for firefighter apparatus by providing fire hydrants and street widths according to strict fire department standards. Number 9, provides recreation, light, and air and avoids congestion by providing single-family homes on individual lots. Each homeowner has their own backyard and front yard spaces providing recreation, light, and air. Title 21 lot coverage standards of 30%, building heights limitations of 30 feet, and front, rear, and side lot building setback minimums all combined together to satisfy the intent of this regulation. 10, facilitates the orderly and efficient layout and use of the land. The Spruce Hollow layout provides the most efficient use of the land possible under the existing zoning limitations. Lots are designed in an orderly fashion with respect to the internal design and in consideration in relation to the surrounding neighborhood. Item number 11, Spruce Hollow furthers the goals and policies of the Comprehensive Development Plan and conforms to the Comprehensive Development Plan in the manner required by Chapter 21.05. On page 59 of the Anchorage Bowl Comprehensive Plan, Plan Map 3-2, titled Generalized Residential Intensity Plan, indicates this parcel as having a desired density level of 3 to 6 dwelling units per acre. The density levels of Spruce Hollow, as proposed, is 4.9 dwelling units per acre, well within the desired range. On page 57 of the plan, Map 3-1, titled Generalized Land Use Plan, indicates its area as residential. Spruce Hollow combines with the planning goals and policies of the Anchorage 2020 Comprehensive Plan, such as, on page 65 of the plan, it states, encourage an adequate supply of quality, affordable housing that meets the diverse needs of Anchorage residents and that integrates with other housing to balance neighborhoods. Policy number 3 of the 2020 plan states the MOA shall employ development strategies for the Anchorage Bowl in order to accompany approximately 31,600 additional dwelling units by the year 2020, with allocation of 5,000 to 7,000 dwelling units in the central planning sector. And Spruce Hollow is in the middle of the central planning sector. Note that the MOA Long Range Planning Department, in their not yet published analysis, is finding that Anchorage is heading towards a 50% deficit in the number of homes they are required to support the 2020 plan goals. The 2020 plan on page 58 states, vacant land in the Anchorage Bowl can meet only part of the forecasted housing demand. Policy number 14 on page 73 of the plan states, conservation of residential lands for housing is a high community priority. New residential development at densities less than identified in the neighborhood or district plans is discouraged. Thank you for your consideration of this preliminary plat application for Spruce Hollow. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Brent Cole.
Through the chair. At page 9, 10, and 11 are a number of conditions that the department has recommended. Do you have any objection with any of them?
With B4, we have no objection to that change. And the next change was on 8, number 8. And 15C, We're fine with that also.
15C?
Oh, it was 15C, that was the resolve note. You might want to change that number 11, I'm not sure if it was already brought up, but number 11 should be number 16 on page 11.
Yeah. But, I mean, so you don't have any objection with any of these conditions?
No.
Through the chair, we received some comments tonight. Have you had a chance to look at those?
I read them as I came into the meeting, yes.
The first one, yeah. Sorry. Excuse me. The first one, I'm assuming that they're done sufficient studies here. I see a pretty comprehensive one on the wetlands and wildlife, and this appears to be consistent with the two neighborhoods that are both to the east and the west. Would that be fair to say?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand. I couldn't hear.
This comment, the first comment, talks about the wetlands and the wildlife, and it appears that there's been a pretty extensive examination done of the wetlands and what needs to happen in order to make this a successful property development. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, we've submitted for a Corps of Engineers permit, and there's been extensive studies on it. Any more detailed questions should probably go to Robin Wright. She's the Wetlands Corps coordinator.
And the development that's on both sides of this, east and west, as I read the map, are essentially the same as what you're proposing.
Yes, correct. The land to the east there sits up quite a bit higher.
Just trying to see if there's any concern that we need to be aware of
Sure.
from this comment. It doesn't. It seems like everything that we've read has been met here that meets his concerns.
Yes.
Well, were there any other concerns raised when you presented this to the community council?
There was one person that raised some concerns about not having a park-like area next to his house.
Not having
Not having a park-like area next to his house, and it's very understandable. I've had the same thing happen to me.
And we've had that many times, and if somebody talks about that, we can address that. Okay, that's all the questions I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, in relation to the question, two questions that I have. One is the Lot 6. It's not radial. It's right on the corner of Miranda and Spruce. Is there a reason why?
No reason at all. It's a drafting error. Yeah, that would end up turning into, I think it's a 20-foot radius. Good catch on that one. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. It wouldn't have gotten by plan review.
Excellent. So then, on the drainage easement being 20 feet wide on lot 6 through 12, let's say, is that wide enough for the relocation of the drainage feature? And could you maybe elaborate if it's going to be adequate?
Mr. Dave Grenier will speak to that. Thank you.
Members of the board, Mr. Chairman, my name is David Grenier. That's Grenier. And some background, I think, would be appropriate on why we're building a swale along the south and the west boundary. Right now, there's an existing drainage way that bisects the property. And working with the Corps of Engineers, they would like to keep that surface water that is crossing the property in some sort of a drainage swale. So what we're proposing is basically a 1 foot deep vegetated swale, 2 to 1 side slopes, with a 2 to 3 foot base on it. So we're talking a total width of somewhere between 6 and 8 feet for this swale. We propose on the south boundary 15 foot as being adequate to maintain something of that width. We can work with, what we'd like to do is work with CEA on their easement and get a joint use for the additional 5 feet to make that 20. We've done that in the past for especially these shallow type of swales. And so we can work with a 20-foot municipality. The maintenance department feels they need that if they need to get in and do any maintenance. The one along the westerly boundary, the one adjacent to the proposed right-of-way, we've got room to do 20, but we feel the 10 is adequate because you're adjacent to a right-of-way. There will be a future road at some time, so you've got plenty of room for access. We feel 10 foot more than would be wide enough for the swale we're talking about. So we'd ask for some consideration on that condition. We do have room to do it on the backyards and still get the units in there, but we feel that it's, we'd like you to consider 10 foot on that one.
So, if they ever do put in a road, this drainage swale they would have to probably fill the road section with the roadway improvements, sidewalks, all the rest of it. So, I'm not sure that sharing the right-of-way with some of the area of the drainage swale maybe meets that standard.
I would say that all of the improvements, the public improvements, sidewalk, curb and gutter, and pavement would be within the dedicated right-of-way and would not infringe on this drainage easement. I foresee the drainage easement as standalone within that 10 foot, and the access would be off the pavement of the future road.
And but wouldn't that 20 feet share with the 10 feet of well, is there no T&E? Yeah, there's a 5-foot T&E along there, so you could share 5 feet of the T&E with CEA, and then the other 15 feet.
Are we, Mr. Porter, are we talking along the southerly?
No, along 6 through 12.
Okay, 6 through 12. Oh, the easements you're seeing, they're pocket easements, what we call a pocket easement, because the actual power will be coming from the west across. There's existing power along the existing subdivision to the west.
Okay.
So these are
just
pocket easements,
okay.
Correct.
I understand.
And because it's a shallow swale scenario, only 1 foot deep, this concept works well.
So is the 20 feet required in the new Title 21 or the old Title, I mean the 10 feet? Do we have any reading on that?
Typically 20 foot is what you use when you have buried pipe, and when you've got a system that requires heavy equipment, excavators to dig down, you need 20 feet to work. We have no problem with that when you have pipe. When you have a swale, it's a different type of improvement.
Okay, thank you.
Through the chair, Mr. Grenier, if you were required to put a 20-foot easement on the west side, would that force you to put more encumbrance on the individual lots?
Through the chair, Mr. Young, it is doable because of the depth of these lots, 120 feet. I wouldn't say it is an undue hardship. It's just excessive in our opinion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the board, I think the municipality's position with regard to the width of this easement is to ensure that the drainage is contained completely on property within an easement and can be maintained on property within that easement. So Mr. Grenier is suggesting that part of the right-of-way could be used because the easement would abut right-of-way that, perhaps 10 feet is not necessary, but the municipality's position is that the rerouted drainage way should be completely on property, contained on property, and maintained on property. So that's why we're requesting the 20 feet.
Trevor Edmondson.
Through the chair, Mr. Dryer, Mr. Grenier, question regarding staff packet. It says that the property is affected by Class C wetlands and undesignated wetlands. To what extent are the undesignated wetlands?
Hi, my name is Robin Reich. My last name is spelled R-E-I-C-H. I am responsible for the core permitting for this project. When the project was initially thought of, my client sent a wetlands assessor out there, a wetland scientist out there to do a wetland delineation. They found what the Muni found with the Class C wetlands that had been previously mapped. They also found an area that was not designated by the Muni before. They labeled it as Class A wetland. So it's another wetland polygon on the property. I don't think you guys have it, but there's an area just north of Miranda Drive.
That's the,
Oh, yeah, you can see
sorry, is that the green hatch?
Yes.
Yes, that's the area.
Okay, so that's Class A, you say?
Yeah, I mean, it's not officially Class A according to the municipality, but it's a undesignated wetland that was not designated by the municipality, so it couldn't go through the general permit. It had to be permitted through the Corps of Engineers.
So that impacts a couple of the lots in this project. Looks like impacts lots 2 and 3 maybe, or maybe 4. Is that correct? Does it impact lots 2, 3, and 4? Or what?
Yeah, I don't know the lot numbers, but yeah, it's right here. Total for those lot numbers. Yeah.
And that's what you're resolving with the Corps? Is that part of the resolution with the Corps?
So we've applied for a core permit.
Okay.
We're about 2 weeks away from ending the public notice period, public comment period for that. It ends May 18th. And after that, if no comments are received, then they should have a permit in hand.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And next,
Yeah.
Kevin Cross.
In regards to, just for clarification, reverting back to that 10-foot easement on that west side, I'm looking at the depth of the lots and understanding your setbacks and restrictions and how that impacts it, and why there's a 20-foot, so for equipment, so if we can accomplish what would normally be designated for 20-foot and accomplish it with 10 feet. Do we know the size or roughly the scope of the houses that are going to be built there, what their footprint would be? They're
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Cross, we don't have the exact size on those. The rear setback is what, 10?
10 feet. Correct.
10 feet. As far as the width of it, 20 foot, we can accept that 20 feet from the standpoint, or we could make it a resolve, and because we've got the details we're working out with the Corps of Engineers right now, and the municipality has not seen that design. I believe that's.
In just bringing this thought to fruition, if you've got a 120-foot lot, and you're going to have a minimum 20-foot driveway, and then typically spindle homes, if I'm familiar, because I've sold quite a few of them, are typically 40 to 50 feet deep, and then you've got a 20-foot easement on the back, that means that all those houses would have very small yards if you just subtract it. And I think part of the reason that we're looking at is if you're going to do an open culvert in a ditch, they wouldn't be able to fence off that section. The fence would have to be on this side of the 10-foot ditch, because they're not going to fence across an open culvert. So I think part of the reason for also going to a 10-foot is if you're any of those lots 6 through 12 and you've got a 20-foot easement with a culvert in it and your house and the lot's only 120 feet, you're talking a very small yard if you're going to fence it off. And most people understanding that there's probably going to be a road on that. So I guess that's just my thought on why if we can accomplish and get the drainage in a 10-foot, then that's much more beneficial to those lots. Otherwise, that's going to impact the value of those lots significantly.
Point of information, real quick. Mr. Grenier, you stated that this is a 10-foot rear yard setback, and I need to correct you there. These are actually through lots, and a primary front yard setback of 20 feet will be provided on both sides. So from the municipality standpoint, you know, with the 20-foot easement, it's not impacting the structures at all. They'll still be set back 20 feet from the property line, being as though these are through lots and they have to provide a primary front yard of 20 feet, both on Spruce Creek Circle and on Spruce Street. So,
yeah, I concur. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. We'll now open the hearing to public testimony. Anyone from the group or individuals may now come forward. Are you speaking on behalf of a group or are you an individual?
An individual.
Go ahead. And your name is?
Kenneth Pugh.
Thank you.
We are residents of Scalero Circle, which is 2 subdivisions west, I guess you'd call it, that are accessed off of East 72nd from Lake Otis. We purchased our home a little over 10 years ago, and when we moved in there, we had a fairly dry piece of ground. It was, we had a little bit of wetness in our our northeast corner that was always there. Last year, we had, our yard was basically a sponge, even in our front yard, until the middle of, well, it was actually the first week of July. We actually invited some folks from the municipality over to look at it. We were concerned that maybe there was a main water line break or perhaps a fire hydrant that was leaking, something to that effect, because our yard was way wetter than it had ever been. Just west of our subdivision, there's another development that's on higher ground from where we are that was developed by Mr. Spinelli, and there was quite a bit of fill that was brought in there and pushed into the adjacent lot, or to fill in the lot before they built homes on piling in some cases. And we believe that that fill created a situation that pushed the water table further out. I'm not a scientist by any means, but just logic makes sense to me that when you fill in a hole full of water, that it's going to push the water further out. Our concern is, as homeowners, that we're going to create similar situation if this property is developed. This is very, very wet land, and it's basically on the same level as our property is. And we're concerned that if the drainage isn't adequately provided, that we'll wind up with even more water table in our yard. This year we didn't have much snow, so I'm certain that the water table has dropped down. Evidence to me that this other development may have caused an issue is the year that we had the record snowfall, we didn't have any moisture problems at all. Other than that, our sump pump ran in the spring to evacuate a small area that we have that's got a sump pump. Last year, we didn't have any water in our crawl space, but our yard was just soaked. And so I don't know what the cause and effect is, but I just want to make real certain that this is adequately drained so that it doesn't create problems for the adjacent subdivisions. That's our primary concern.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, are there any questions for Mr. Pugh? No questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am?
I'm Debbie Pugh, Ken's wife, and I just want to reiterate that our property is kind of squished between Dawn Ridge, which is the Spinell subdivision that was recently finished, and this new one that they're talking about.
Can you turn your mic down towards you?
Okay. Our property is sandwiched between these two subdivisions, and I'm really concerned if they put fill in over there or if that issue of the wetlands isn't handled properly, that I don't know what's going to happen to our place. We're trying to downsize. We're empty nesters, and I don't know how I can sell my house right now. I can't sit in my yard. I can't let my dogs play in it. I can't have my grandkids on it because your butt gets wet. I don't know how I can look at someone and say, yeah, you should buy my house. It's great, because it's not. And these are my notes from talking to the Muni and Anchorage Water and Wastewater last summer. I dealt with them for a couple months. Multiple people came out to look at it. Everyone said, no pipes are leaking, the fire hydrant's fine. There's no water main break or anything like that. An underground stream must have changed courses, maybe when Dawn Ridge was built. Maybe the fill that they put in has caused this. No one could really tell me why my land is flooding, but it's worse than a wet sponge. It's worse than a saturated sponge. You go like this, and the soil just, I have never seen anything like it before. I don't know how to describe it. But anyway, I'm really worried about my house.
Thank you.
I'm really concerned about this drainage being handled properly, because I don't know if anyone of you have ever been out there. I mean, I guess some of you have, but it's a pond, it's a lake, and there's ducks on it. And I don't know how you're going to make it into a good property that doesn't, well, anyway, I think you know what I'm talking about.
Don Porter has a question for you.
Okay.
Through the chair, could you clarify where you are located in relation to this development?
I'm on Scalero Circle.
So is that west or east?
It's 2 plats west of the subdivision you're talking about today, or proposed subdivision.
And what lot can you, do you know?
And then Dawn Ridge was here. So Dawn Ridge line versus. That's where I am.
John Delaney subdivision is the name
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I was just trying to make sure I understood where you were talking. It's one circle, set of circles over from Fergie.
Okay. We're sandwiched in between Dawn Ridge and the one we're talking
And
about
Dawn
tonight.
Ridge was then to the west of you?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Brent Cole.
Right as the cul-de-sac opens, we're right there on the right, 7031. If you're on 72nd, going east or west on 72nd, then you turn right onto Scalero Circle. It goes down a hill, and then the cul-de-sac opens, and as soon as the cul-de-sac starts opening, we're on the right. Mm-hmm. Some of them say their yards are wetter since the new subdivision, and some say it's not. Yes, Andy Bardner, how do you say his last name? Bodnar, and Andy Bobnar. He has talked to other people as well with the Muni and wastewater. He said he talked to all the same people I did. We haven't talked to them.
Thank you, Brent. Mr. Cross.
How long have you lived on Scalero?
10 years.
Excellent. And now when you purchased your house, does your house have sump pumps?
It does now.
It does. Did it have sump pumps when you purchased it?
No.
And it was required, you required to add them later just due to the groundwater?
We put it in because there's a 10-foot area. It's hard to explain. It's an addition. It has a crawl space nowhere else in the house does.
Okay.
It's a low spot in the house. It has a sump pump now. My husband put in a couple years ago.
Gotcha. Where is that discharging to?
Where's it what?
Where does it discharge it?
Into the front yard.
Oh, it goes out front yard?
Well, actually, he puts a hose on it. It goes out to the end of the yard.
All right, excellent. And how often, and maybe you guys know, have you seen a significant increase in how often it's running? Anything?
Last year, the sump pump,
Oh, I apologize.
Yeah, you're allowed one opportunity to...
I've only seen it run a couple times.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Hello, my name is Steve Lind, and I live on Henderson Loop, which is directly east of Miranda. And I live on that side of Henderson Loop. I just want to say about water, I know that the neighbor below me, and I think it's Crowberry, is directly north of me. He's below me. I'm up on a hill. He's had tremendous troubles with water that the city has been dealing with in that area too. That's a new subdivision. So just so everybody's aware, there's other areas that are low-lying that are being affected by water in this particular neighborhood. So I couldn't say what his problems are now and whether they've been fixed, but I know that he was experiencing, like he had to dig out his whole foundation and repaint it so that it wouldn't leak through into his crawl space and basement. So there is a lot of water in that area. I mostly had traffic concerns. A friend of mine, my neighbor, who also lives on Henderson, had traffic concerns, and I'm just wondering, as far as that goes, I missed some of the beginning of the talking, but is it anticipated that the traffic that will be coming off this new street and Miranda would most likely go to Spruce and then out to 68th to get out, and less likely that they'll be going up through Miranda and towards Elmore on 72nd?
The board may ask that question of the of staff, but do you have any other testimony that you're going to offer?
The only other question I had is, and that was because we were worried about traffic coming down Henderson, because right now from Miranda Court, they go through Henderson to get to Bugle to get to 68th, and so we have a lot of traffic just from Miranda that comes down our street, and we don't have an improved street. We have a very narrow street, and there's kids playing on it. So That's our big concern as to which way the traffic's going to most likely flow.
Okay.
Okay, and then the other concern or question I had about it is what is likely to, since we own our homes, what is likely to happen to property value and or houses valued there when you put in a new subdivision? Does it usually go up or down?
Thank you.
And those were the two questions I had.
Could you please restate your name and spell your last name?
Lind, L-I-N-D.
And
Stephen Lind, yes.
Steve or Stephen?
Stephen. And our addresses were changed just a couple years ago on Henderson. It's 3673. I live on the corner of the west wing of Henderson.
Thank you.
Okay.
Are there any questions for Mr. Lind?
I had one more statement, sorry. Can I make that real quick?
You have 14 seconds.
Okay. And that was just that I know a few of the people that aren't here, that neighbors that live on Fergie, which is just west, just east of the street that those people were living on with their water. And I'd be glad to ask them if they have water problems in the yard, if anybody wants to get a hold of me to find that out.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Lind? None. Thank you.
Okay.
Are there any other members of the public who would wish to speak? Are you an individual or a member of a group?
Individual.
Thank you. And your name?
Jennifer Higby, Higby.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm a little nervous. We live on Miranda Drive, and our house backs up to the proposed tracks 21 through 16. And I know that the topography behind our house, currently we see a really nice backing to trees, and then there's this very steep hill that goes down into where this development is being planned. And the questions that I have are, when the proposal is to have that all filled in, how is that going to impact the landscaping behind our land line, and how close are those other lots going to then turn around and back into ours? Because our lot will come up and then it drops significantly down. So if a lot of this change is going to go on, is it going to then cause erosion to my yard that's going to cause it to degrade and fail, and then subsequently impact my property value? And then the other question I have is, there's a whole lot of already subdivided areas that are just literally a block over that won't need nearly as much development and will actually increase our property value because it's really undeveloped right now. Why isn't that being explored? Why are 22 lots being tried to cram into this little tiny spot in between a whole bunch of other already crammed areas, when there's a whole bunch of space literally just on the other side of 72nd that's ready to go? I don't know if that's been explored or not, or if anybody's looked at it. And then the other concern that we have is, in here it says that there were 15 public comments received in opposition to the subdivision. And I was one of those comments when this whole thing was originally proposed, before it was postponed indefinitely, and then we got to come here again. Where are those comments? Did you guys get to see those comments? Did anybody read those comments? And then our other concern as well is the traffic. We have a lot of small kids and animals, and the increased traffic in there is going to it's going to make life miserable, and none of us on Miranda want it there at all, period. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Higby? Trevor Edmondson.
Through the chair, Ms. Higby, how many lots are on Miranda right now, where you live?
Well, I am the fifth house on the left. Sorry, I'm not used to reading the plats.
It's okay. I think
That backs up to the proposed one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Just where the road would branch through to where the proposed cut through to the new property. So we're right in the middle.
I just did a count here, and it looks like there's 24 lots along Miranda, and that subdivision is roughly the same size as the subdivision that the petitioner is asking.
And it's crammed as well, and we all recognize that.
So what's different about your subdivision versus the subdivision that's being proposed here?
The difference is why try to cram yet another section in here when just over to the southeast is a whole bunch of area that doesn't need nearly as much development, doesn't need nearly as much fill, and it's not going to disrupt hardly any of the wildlife. I mean, we have neighborhood moose that they're part of our street family. We have a mama moose and a baby. She calves every year, and she's a part of our neighborhood. And there's things that we're going to lose that make where we live enjoyable.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Cole.
Through the chair, Ms. Higbee, just so that you know, they changed the fact there wasn't 15 comments, there was only the 2. So that was a mistake, and he mentioned that earlier.
But where are all the original comments that were submitted when this first came out about a year ago before it was indefinitely suspended? Because I submitted a very lengthy comment, and so did my neighbors.
Through the chair, to the board, there were comments that were submitted along with the original application. That application was postponed indefinitely. They resubmitted a new application, and with
we were told that we would.
With that application, there was only 2 comments. So, if the board would like staff to provide the additional comments, we can provide that to you. But at this point in time, with this application, there was only 2 comments that were received by staff.
Could I respond?
Hold on just a minute, okay?
Okay.
We can only do this in an orderly manner, and we got to give people the opportunity to talk, and by interrupting, the system breaks down, number one. Number two, and I don't mean to step on the chairman's job here, but you have to understand, we really can't answer questions. We don't know what they plan to do. We are given this package about a week before. We don't know anything. And so really, if you have questions, the people to address your questions to are the people that are sitting here. And I'm pretty confident, because I've been here for a number of years, that they're generally very receptive, both before, after the meetings, to answer your questions. But I apologize to everybody, because I know a lot of you have asked some questions, and I'm going to get to the comments later on. But our job up here is not to be the sounding board. Our job is to understand what the requirements are and to make sure that the proposals that are brought to us meet the minimum requirements. So that's what I'm trying to tell you. I don't know how much time you have left. You're more than willing to give the comment to the extent you have time, but I'm not going to be able to answer it. I don't think anybody on this board is going to be able to answer some of the questions that you've asked today, and I would just suggest that the public process works best if you direct your questions and your inquiries to the people that can answer them. Okay?
You do still have 39 seconds.
My only response was, it was our understanding when the application was resent out,
Okay, take your time.
that we would not be required to resubmit the comments that we had originally submitted, that they would be included when the process continued. And that's why everyone on our street did not resend everything, and to look at only having 2 responses is not representative of how we feel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, me too.
Ma'am, we have a few questions for you. Thank you, Ms. Higbee.
Sorry to bring you back, but I just wanted to tell you a couple things. One is that the new subdivision is 21 lots, so it is less than the lots that you're on, the 24. So they are making the lots bigger, or there's going to be less houses. I just wanted to point that out. And I also wanted to point out that dealing with the Army Corps of Engineers is not easy, especially when you have a unclassified or Class A wetland. So the process they're going to have to go through to finalize anything is lengthy and very involved, and those issues with drainage are going to be addressed there. One of the things that she mentioned earlier was that they're still going through the comment period with the Army Corps of Engineers, so you still have time to address them as well with your concerns, or speak directly to Triad Engineering. I don't know if we can bring him back to ask questions about the back of the lot, or I don't know if that's appropriate or not, to refer to the slope between your property and theirs. But if your property is higher, it's probably not going to drain onto your property at the end of it. But it'd be worth talking to, and he's a very open, I've seen before, to talk to concerned citizens. So I just wanted to bring that up. And the other thing I wanted to bring up was that the department recommendations for this development to continue are lengthy, and probably one of the most lengthy that I've seen in the 2.5 years that I've been here. So it's definitely not an easy process, and with the Army Corps of Engineers involved, they're going to have to go through quite a bit to make sure that drainage is addressed. And my hope would be that the end result is the drainage is better because it's funneled to an area where it can handle it. And I just wanted to let you know that they don't do that lightly or easily. It's very involved, and I recommend that you submit a question or a comment during your period that you have left to be more involved in the process, so that you have a better understanding of what will be next door, or what they're trying to put next door. So I hope that kind of helps you understand a little bit of what I see here. And I don't know if we can bring Grenier back to answer the questions of the drainage, or is that closed?
They have an opportunity of rebuttal, and we'll have a chance to ask them questions again.
Okay. All right. That's all I have to say.
Trevor Edmondson.
Through the Chairman, I want to thank you for your testimony tonight. I can understand your frustration of not understanding the process and not, seeing the previous comments that were sent in on the previous case. I can understand how that would be frustrating, being on your side of things. It just was a procedural thing, and I don't think it was done intentionally to hide your comments. I too would have liked to have seen them based, on the fact that, I know that there was comments sent in, so I appreciate your testimony in that regard. So thank you.
Thank you. Don Porter.
I do have a question for you, in the sense that I would like you to know, and I'm wondering if you do know, we're here to listen to your comment, and we don't take your comment lightly. So what you have brought up with, you will see as this process develops, that we have listened to you. So I just want you to know that, and I'd like you to be aware of it, I guess.
I hope you guys get to see all the other comments too.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Higby. Any other questions? Thank you.
Hi,
Yes,
my name
ma'am.
is Tanya Hobson, Hobson, and I live on the corner of Henderson Loop and Bugle. And my neighbor Steve back there, he expressed our concern about traffic on the road there. On our half the loop has sidewalks. We do not on our side, and Miranda is directly behind us. We have a lot of traffic that comes from Miranda. My first thought is that opening up that onto Spruce, coming out the other end, will actually help us and reduce the traffic. But on the other side, maybe it won't. It might get worse. And we don't have sidewalks. We have kids out there. I can't tell you how many times people have flown around that corner, landed in my yard, narrowly missed hitting my children playing on our own property. We have a big corner lot, and that doesn't seem to be enough with the traffic going around there. It's not a very wide road. There are no sidewalks. So I just wanted to express that we're very concerned that it is a possibility traffic might increase, and I want that to be considered. I mean, I don't know what they could do to fix that. I doubt they're going to come through and put sidewalks on the street, but I'm a taxpayer like everyone else, and it's just unfortunate that we have trouble out there riding our bikes, kids out there. It's scary. People fly down that road, and it's very narrow, and we don't need more people than we already have on that street. So it might help us, but it's going to make it a lot worse for the people on Miranda. You have all the people coming from over off of Winchester cutting through our area, and now that that's open, maybe they'll bypass me and go straight down, and you're going to have all that extra traffic on Miranda on that crammed street, like she was trying to express to you. And you guys ask her, well, what's the difference between Miranda and the new area going in? The difference is you're going to possibly pull a lot more traffic coming through and using that as the outlet instead of us. So I don't know if it's going to be worse for me or her, but it's unfortunate.
Are there any questions for Ms. Hobson? Brent Cole.
So, Ms. Hobson, I'm trying to figure out, because I'm not familiar with this area.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, the way I see it, there's about 24 houses that line Miranda.
Right.
And then Miranda comes down and turns onto East 72nd, right?
Yes.
And then goes straight. And where does it go to if you go straight on that?
On 72nd, if you go straight, it takes you to Elmore.
To Elmore.
But since they've cut that through, it's such a congested road that everyone in the surrounding areas there, like from Miranda, the other side of Henderson, and past Henderson, you have Winchester, it goes to Whitehall. All of those people in those neighborhoods funnel through Henderson Loop to hit 68th to try to get out that way because there is a street light on 68th on Elmore and also on Lake Otis. So they bypass 72nd and Elmore because you just can't get out onto that road. There, it's crazy with traffic for the entire hillside, using it as a cut-through.
But right now, it's just people from Miranda are going down Henderson Loop.
Right, and that's a lot of traffic, let me tell you, a lot of traffic, and we don't have sidewalks. My concern is you open that up, all the people on the other side over there on Spruce, in the Fergie Circle, whatever those are right there, are they going to use that as a cut-through to buy, because now is that going to be congested at Spruce and 68th, and now they're going to come by, and that could potentially give more traffic on 72nd and Henderson Loop.
Okay, now I understand it a little bit more. Okay, thank you.
It might work out for me.
Yeah,
They might bypass my corner, but maybe they won't.
thank you, ma'am.
Any other questions? Nope. Anyone else from the public?
Hi, my name is Sean Higbee, H-I-G-B-Y is the last name. I'd just like to follow up with what everybody's got the comments on. We moved into this area a little over 10 years ago. The wildlife that's there, the trees that are there, everything that is there, seems like Anchorage over the last 10 to 15 years, I've been here for almost 30, has just blown up huge. Just because a project meets the intent of a regulation and meets the guidelines that the city has set forth does not make it necessarily a good idea. I have to deal with the same background in the U.S. military every day of my life. We have regulations that govern everything we do, but just because we can do something doesn't make it the right choice. This project going in right here, even though it's a little smaller, you're talking 2 houses, what's the basic overall guide for why we're even putting these houses there? Everything that I've seen that's been mailed out says it's to make affordable housing for the city of Anchorage. What's affordable? $250,000 to $350,000? Not affordable. So what's the point of this project? Cramming more houses in an area that doesn't need them? I mean, this area is a wetland. We have hundreds of ducks that live there all year long. The moose, the bears, everything that comes through there. And we get that people come first. Wildlife isn't always necessarily the first choice. However, we live here for a reason. Wildlife is number one in my book. That's why I came here almost 30 years ago.
Is that all?
That's all for me.
Thank you. Any questions from Sean Higby? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public?
My name is Stephen White, and I live on the Hollyberry Circle, which would be on the northeast portion of this proposed development here. My lot's the one that's most affected by it. There is a steep drop off to my property where there's a 10-foot easement for utilities, and then immediately after the easement ends for the utilities is a nice grove of evergreen trees. And up here, we all know that it takes a long time for evergreen trees to get of any size. That was one of the reasons why we purchased this property, was we knew that there was wetlands back there. The trees gave us that feeling of Alaska. You didn't feel like a bunch of rats in a box with 2,000 neighbors all crammed into a small area. So it has been a blessing seeing the moose, the ducks, the geese, and all that around here. And yes, I am of the same boat as one of these ladies who testified before. My wife wrote a very lengthy comment section on the very first time that we were made aware of this. It mysteriously went into the, oh, don't worry about it phase. All of a sudden, here we are being notified a second time. Oh, it's on again. And then a short time later, no notification. It just says, oh, it's off again. Well, here it is on again. I understand the complexities that you folks are facing, and I find myself in a very odd position, having been a carpenter for 35 years and having had to go before 5 municipalities and a county back in the lower 48 just to get a zoning variance that I needed for a commercial building. I understand the need for building and doing everything right. Having lived in Wasilla for a while, and the homeowners association had a new development go in. They backfilled. The lawsuits are still flying on that one and will be for decades to come, because when you backfill this much terrain, you do change the water tables. Myself, I'm very fortunate. I don't have a drainage problem, but the neighbors on both sides of me, their sump pumps do run a lot. So it's only a matter of time, depending upon how much they backfill, as to how you shift the water table. The traffic in the area, like she said on Bugle, is pretty intense. And that Elmore, God help you trying to get out there on that 72nd. There are some serious traffic issues there. Whether you guys need to recommend they put in a street light or something, that Elmore is incredible. And the increased traffic here, we're against it.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. White? Thank you. Any other members of the public wishing to speak? We'll now take rebuttal.
Thank you. Let me summarize some of the concerns here. And for more distinct answers, we have Mr. Grenier and Robin here. The drainage system that we are going to install with this development is going to vastly improve the drainage situation in the entire area surrounding the subdivision. We're putting in a storm drainage system that will be connected to footing drains on each one of the houses if necessary. As far as property values go, in general, when you have a new subdivision that comes in with new houses being built, it tends to prop up property values just a little bit. So that shouldn't be an issue for the people there. The traffic design is actually basically designed with fire code in mind. The way Miranda Drive is now, it's a cul-de-sac that is too long for fire safety standards. And I think the people that live over to the east there, a couple, 3 blocks, I get the names right, I think it was Henderson, their traffic circulation is actually going to be improved because it's going to allow an alternate access for police and fire and other safety personnel like ambulances and whatnot to get back out into the road system down Spruce Street and head out on East 68th, which goes both directions to Elmore or Lake Otis. Concerning the property to the east there, it sits up 10, 15 feet higher. Because a lot of those houses on that west-hand side were actually there because they pushed dirt over onto this property. Excuse me. The filling that we're doing on this property is in the 2-foot plus or minus range. We're not going to be filling up any higher than that, definitely not in the 5 or 10-foot range. Let's see. The gentleman to the northeast, Stephen White, on Hollyberry Drive, to the northeast there, his situation is going to be improved too. And I'm sorry, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, but the drainage as it exists now is going more in that area, and we're not going to be affecting that. We're going to be taking drainage into the existing municipal storm drain system that heads west on Fergie Drive, and then it cuts between some of the lots and then goes into the main drainage system on 68th.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I addressed everybody's concerns, but I'm not sure if I missed one or not.
We have some questions for you.
Thank you.
Mr. Cole.
Thank you. Through the chair, the first question I have is this subdivision going to be open now to Spruce? Will that be one of the routes that people will be able to travel as northbound on Spruce?
Yes, it's open now, servicing Fergie Circle to the west that parallels our street on that 5-acre parcel is developed to the west of Spruce Street.
So it will connect so that there will be people will be able to leave. I guess it's Miranda Drive and turn north on Spruce?
Correct. Yes, they will.
Okay. So hopefully that will alleviate some of the traffic problems that people have expressed.
It should.
Was your firm part of the original application?
Yes.
And were you aware of the numerous letters that were written by people when the first application was prepared?
There was letters written, and we went through a pretty long process. We've been going through this process now for a year and a half on this particular subdivision. That's why it was re-advertised and we resubmitted, and we took it back to the community council for that reason just a couple weeks ago. And then
the question was, were you aware of the previous comments that have been made by a number of people?
I actually don't remember. I don't think I ever saw the written things. There's people that commented at the community council the first time, because we've been there twice now. And I don't have those. I haven't seen those. I've heard the people through going the community council twice. It's all similar concerns, valid concerns that they have that we've been addressing over the last year and a half.
The only reason I raise this is because I am concerned that we didn't hear or see the comments. And if you had, and I think I specifically asked you about comments that you'd received at the last one, and I assume that you answered that. But if in the future, if I'm going to be a lot more less specific and more general, so that I can make sure that I know about other comments that have come on in the past. I assumed, maybe wrongfully, that when I was asking you about public comments, I would have learned of all of them. Now I've learned that we just heard about the last meeting and we didn't hear about comments that went on in the past. And so I'm going to be a little bit more general in my questions from now on. As I understand it, there seems to be 3 areas of concern: traffic, water, and wildlife. Is that the nature of the comments that you received not only at the last community council meeting, but at the community council meeting before that on this application?
I haven't actually received those other comments. And
did you go to the community council meeting?
Yes,
the
correct.
First one?
Yes.
And the second one?
Yes.
Okay. Let me ask you it in this way then.
Okay.
When you attended those 2 community
Yes.
council meetings, was the nature of the concerns that were expressed at that meeting, did they fall into the 3 categories: traffic, water, and wildlife?
Yeah, I'd say drainage was a big one. Because people, I heard at the community council that people on Fergie Drive had issues with basements, flooding. I'm not exactly sure what from. And we feel like we've been addressing all these concerns quite well. I mean, the codes we have to comply with for storm drainage systems and stormwater pollution and prevention plans are just incredible.
I'm not doubting that, but what I'm
sorry.
asking you is, because I don't know what was brought up,
Yes.
I don't know if you've answered them. It appears to me that if those are the 3 areas that people were concerned about, your plan addresses those.
Correct.
But since I wasn't aware of the other comments, I just wanted to make sure, were there anything else that was brought up that we should be aware about?
No, the drainage, water, wildlife, park-like setting, that was about it. Oh, and traffic.
Okay, thank you.
Don Porter.
So I'd like to ask you about your comment on vastly improve, and it's going to drain into the MOA storm drain system.
Okay. Mr. Grenier?
Yes, through the chair, Mr. Porter, what?
Let me ask the question.
Yeah.
So the existing drainage, does it drain into the existing storm drain system now?
Currently, it does not. Right now, it follows a drainage in its current condition. The surface drainage heads north on Spruce, crosses, and then crosses over in a drainage easement or a creek at that point. And that's what this surface swale that we talked about earlier, that's where that drainage would go. An additional storm drain system that we will be installing is a piped system within the cul-de-sac that will connect to existing storm drain in Fergie Circle. That is a municipal maintained system. Now, the difference in this system versus the one in Fergie, it only collects the surface water in Fergie Circle. And this one will have footing drains to each one of the lots tied to that system, which will address what a number of people, it sounds like, to the west are experiencing. There's no way for the water to get into a municipal storm pipe system.
So let me clarify. So on your existing map here, you have an existing drainage shown across. It starts from the lower southeast and essentially terminates on the northwest corner. Is that drainage going to be directed into the storm drain system?
That will be the swale that we've been talking about that'll come along the south and go to the west.
So you'll redirect it, you'll run it along the south, you'll run it along the western property boundary.
And continue north along Spruce. So that's just the...
You're not changing that at all.
We're not changing that pattern. What we're doing is addressing the additional drainage on site plus footing drains, the groundwater.
I understand. So you're going to be, any of the new improvements will be directed into the municipal storm drain system in Fergie. The surface drainage will then continue its normal pattern, but you're addressing the additional development drainage by putting it into this municipal system, which then you'll have to follow all the MOA code, you'll have to do the detention, you'll have to do whatever's required for that process.
That is correct. Chapter 2 of the DCM, the Design Criteria Manual, is very specific about new developments and how you're to handle the drainage of a development.
So the reason I'm asking the question is I wanted to drill into the comments about drainage and about the concerns about drainage. You know, we've heard folks tell us about the drainage, and you know, the first thought is, well, the more development, the more pavement, the more water. So where's that water going to go? So as long as we have to assume that the MOA drainage system is adequate to receive it, that's MOA, that is their problem in terms of making sure that they're, you know, within ARDSA, that we are adequate for that system. But what you are doing is you're going to be a net decrease because you're taking all of this vegetated area and some of that did drain into the drainage way, and that's all going to end up. So you're actually going to be reducing the impact of this lot, BLM 33, on the overall drainage system. So I think what you're saying is that you're going to make an improvement to the overall system. I can agree with that based on what you're telling me.
Your summary is correct.
Okay.
Daniel Young.
Thank you, through the chair. Mr. Dreyer and Mr. Grenier both, or either of you can choose, but I have a few questions for you that came up in the public comments. One of them is about road maintenance. Who is going to be responsible for road maintenance once the roads are complete?
Through the chair, Mr. Young, these are dedicated rights-of-way, and so the improvements will be built to municipal standards and maintained by the municipality.
Thank you. And next question from the public, and the testimony was about crime. They're stating that there's, without supplying any evidence or facts, that there's going to be an increase in crime. And Mr. Dreyer, I heard you talk about traffic patterns that would create safety because there would be more police access. Would either of you choose to address the crime issue for us, please? And before you do, I'm not aware, there's no facts that were provided that there would be an increase in crime, but it sounds like from your testimony there would be more safety than...
Correct, because there's going to be more access, circular access for fire trucks, for ambulances, police cars, things like that. I mean, that's why the connection here was required by the traffic department.
Thank you.
Which we supplied right in the very beginning because it's an obvious design feature. The subdivision to the west Fergie and the one to the east both have streets that stub into this area. Obviously, they were planning on the eventual connection between Fergie and Miranda Street as a safety function, so people could flow out to Spruce Street and get to the hospitals or whatnot.
Thank you. And on the, with regard to the wetlands, which has come up a few times in the wildlife, I assume that those challenges, it seems like from what I'm hearing, your drainage plan with the footing drains is going to address the, actually address some of the neighbors' concerns, because this will dry out the wetland and reroute the water, which is a good thing for the surrounding community as well as the subdivision.
Correct.
What can you tell us about the wildlife? I assume that that's going to be well thought out with the Corps of Engineers. They usually address those issues.
Yes, correct. It's a lengthy process, and we're actually will be trading the wetlands for funds to the Great Land Trust. It's a system they have where we pay per square foot for certain types of wetland, and then they use that money for their projects they feel that are important to them. Maybe they're saving a piece of wetland here, or going to create another piece of wetland in another part of town, things like that.
I understand that. Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Kevin Cross has a question for you.
Oh, sorry.
Apologize. Through the chair, what is the amount of the bond? Typically in a project like this, there's a bond set aside for stormwater drainage issues. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand the question.
Is there typically a bond that's set aside to make sure that future issues with drainage are properly addressed or insured?
If you want to address the bonds.
Through the chair, Mr. Cross, you're talking about lawn area?
Bonding.
Oh, bonding.
Yeah, bonding, meaning money set aside for future issues, meaning that once a builder builds something, if they create issues, it's not on the back of the taxpayer to go back and fix it.
Basically, under the subdivision regulations in the agreement, there is a bond, a 2-year warranty bond that's required to address any issues that occur after the development's put in.
In your experience, in cases where you have tremendous concern regarding drainage, is that often increased to make sure that those issues are properly handled?
Our experience is we can't even start the project unless we've got it addressed up front. The process of getting approval, especially through the municipality, Chapter 2, which includes the EPA permitting process, is very lengthy and in-depth. And we wouldn't even be able to begin this project without addressing it thoroughly.
And I know there's minimum standards for bonds, but during that process, does the public have an opportunity to participate to say we want to make sure that adequate funds are there in case so that we don't have future problems?
The public's always involved with the process all the way through the approval, and we welcome input from the public during the design process.
Excellent. I want to make sure that everybody here knows that there is a process and that there is an opportunity to make sure that there is money set aside for future issues if this project does go through, that they're not left like a lot of the houses that surround it where the builders have built it. There's no footing drains, there's improper drainage, and they're left just holding wet land.
That has occurred in the past, but I would have to say in the last decade that trend has definitely changed.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Trevor Edmondson and then Don Porter.
Through the chair, Mr. Grenier, I'm going to ask some questions that might further clarify Mr. Cross's questions. The subdivision agreement and the bond that's provided for the subdivision agreement, isn't the bond there to ensure that the improvements are made as outlined in the subdivision agreement, which in this case would be improvements to Spruce Creek Circle and Miranda Drive?
Through the chair, Mr. Edmondson, correct. There are two bonds involved in the subdivision process. The first one is to ensure that the improvements are completed, and that is based on an estimate and at 120% of what the improvements cost, and that's based if the municipality had to build those improvements. So you're starting with a high estimate to begin with, 120% on top of that, and it's in the form of a bond that says if these improvements are not installed or completed, the municipality can step in and call that bond. The second bond is after the improvements are installed. Then you have the 2-year warranty bond.
So I just want to clarify this. The bond is there to ensure that the improvements are built, but not there to rectify any future issues that the project may have on the surrounding properties. Is that correct, Mr. Grenier?
That is correct, with the caveat that during that 2-year warranty period, if there are problems that occur, improvements or rectification would have to occur. It's not a fund that is specifically stated for surrounding projects. Is that clear?
Yeah, I just want to clarify what you just said. Is it's problems to the infrastructure that was built and required by the subdivision agreement, correct?
Correct, which would include drainage.
Meaning if the drainage system that was installed by the developer, by the contractor on behalf of the developer failed, then those drainage systems would be repaired. And if they weren't repaired within that 2-year period, then the municipality could step in and use the bond to make the repairs if the developer, say, decided not to make them for whatever reason.
That is correct.
Okay. All right, thanks, Mr. Grenier.
Okay.
Mr. Porter.
So I was reviewing the traffic, and that's come up. And so they gave an advisory comment about the Abbott Loop traffic calming study of 2006. So have you reviewed that as your part of your process?
Yes, correct.
So were there any recommendations as to connecting or not connecting Miranda Drive to Spruce?
Miranda Drive to Spruce.
I mean, that's what you're doing now.
I'm sorry. I have the whole plan actually here, but it deals with the bigger streets. It doesn't deal with Miranda.
Okay.
It deals with 68th and the big cross streets. 73rd, I think, or 72nd and Spruce Street.
So we're looking at traffic calming for 72nd and 68th?
Yeah, there's a whole study that's been done. It's called the East Abbott traffic calming study. I have a copy of it here.
So it didn't address the neighborhood collector, but you are what you're doing is consistent with what's in the report.
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Any additional questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now close the public hearing. The matter now rests with the board. May I have a motion? Daniel Young.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I move that we approve the request for vacation of 3 feet of the 33-foot patent roadway reserve 1140110 located along the south and west property boundaries dedicated by Book 155, page 194, subject to recording a suitable plat.
Thank you. And Trevor Edmondson seconds. Would you speak to your motion?
Yes, thank you. I intend to support this this motion, and I find that the vacation request, the petitioner is proposing to vacate 3 feet of the 33-foot patent roadway reserve. The vacation requests have been reviewed, and they've been found to conform with the municipal vacation policy and ordinance. The requirements for this approval or the authority, the platting authority shall consider the merits of each vacation request, and we have heard this tonight, and the petitioner is dedicating 30 feet of the 30-foot patent roadway reserve to the right-of-way. The dedication provides for the minimum right-of-way width necessary for these roadways, and generally reviewing agencies had either no comment or no objection to the vacation of the 3-foot remainder of the 30-foot roadway reserve, and access to the adjoining properties is provided by dedicated and constructed right-of-ways. Traffic circulation will not be adversely affected by this vacation, and the 3-foot remainder of the 33-foot roadway reserve appears to be excess to the municipal needs of right-of-way. And with those findings, I intend to support my motion.
Thank you. Trevor Edmondson.
I intend to support the motion as well, and I just want to add an additional finding that that the 30 feet of right-of-way that is required here, and therefore not making 3-foot necessary meets the municipal standards. So 30 foot is municipal standards, 30 foot is what's required here, therefore the 3-foot is excess to municipal needs.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments? Is there any opposition to the motion? Seeing no opposition, the motion passes. May I have a motion to approve the plat for 18 months? Daniel Young moves. And Trevor Edmondson seconds. Would you state your motion?
Yes, I move that we approve the plat for 18 months subject to conditions 1 through 3 on page 9. And on item number 4, I'll read it into the record. Enter into a subdivision agreement with private development for the required public urban area improvements for Spruce Creek Circle, Miranda Drive, and the pedestrian pathways between lots 13 and 14. These improvements may include, but are not limited to, paved streets, curbs and gutters, walkways, street lighting, traffic control devices, monuments, drainage facilities, utilities, and any traffic section improvements requirements. Also, item number 5 on page 9, number 6, 7, and 8, and 9 on page 10, and on number 10, I would like to modify what's in our packet to resolve with the municipality of Anchorage the need to dedicate drainage easements along the south and west property boundaries of at least 10 feet on either side of the drainage way. The easements should correspond to the Corps of Engineers approval. Leave items number 10 through 15A and B the same. On 15C, resolve with planning section to the need for a plat note regarding what's written in item C. Include item D, and then on the next item number, which is in our packet numbered 11, change that to number 16. So I've made a few modifications. I can read those again if you wish.
Thank you. The only clarification I'd like to make on that is I think you stated after you restated 10 as a resolve item, you then stated leave 10 the same. I think you meant 11 through 15 would be the same, or 11 through 14, and then you made 15C a resolve item also.
Okay, item number 10 was the resolve item.
Right.
And then item numbers 11 through 15A and B would remain the same as they are here. And item number 15C would be a resolve.
Okay. Mr. Edmondson.
Yeah, my question, through the chair, Mr. Young, my question is regards to your change to item 10. Is it resolve the need to dedicate a drainage easement? Is that what you're suggesting?
No, Mr. Edmondson, it's the 10 foot on either side. So it's resolved. Essentially, this is 10 feet on either side is a 20-foot wide easement, and the petitioner has suggested that they could do this with less. And so my intent is to have them resolve that with the municipality, whether it would be 10 feet or 20 feet, or what the municipality would ultimately resolve with them.
Okay, I understand. Maybe we should just restate that condition.
Okay. Thank you, I will. So item number 10, resolve with the municipality the need to have a 20-foot wide easement or a 10-foot easement on either side of the drainage as addressed in the existing item 10. Does that work? If not, I'll try it again.
I think it works. Would you speak to your motion?
Yes, I intend to support my motion, and some of the issues that came up tonight, which I would like to put into the findings, are traffic. And although there's concerns, and I understand that, and I'm sympathetic to that, what we found tonight was that there will be efficient traffic flows in this area. And one of the other issues that came up, or several issues, are safety and potential crime. And as far as safety, with the efficient traffic flows, there will be more access for police. There will be fire hydrants, and this is developed to the fire department standards so that the area would be safely protected, or at least more so than it is now. So I see these improvements as a positive for this development. There are other issues that came up. Water and drainage were the big issues, and the improvements that the developer is proposing to put in storm drains and footing drains is likely, in my opinion, to alleviate some of the surrounding community problems, even though it's not this developer's responsibility. They are taking steps that would help the surrounding community. They're rerouting the stream, and they're doing that through the Corps of Engineers, who provide a very rigorous review. And in rerouting the stream, that should not create any new infiltration. So this area is actually going to be more protective, not only of the houses in this subdivision, but around it. And the issue of the wetlands and wildlife is going to be taken care of by the Corps of Engineers, I trust. And I say this because I've been through these processes with the Corps of Engineers myself, representing other clients, and I know how rigorous the Corps of Engineers and their wetlands and wildlife issues are. And wildlife will be addressed under the Corps of Engineers permit. So for those findings and those reasons, I will support this motion.
Kevin Cross.
Thank you. In regards to S12048, I guess my biggest concern, you guys can help me how we're going to address this, is that there were 15 other public comments that somehow are not on the record here. How would I move to somehow have those included? I guess aside from renaming it so that those don't show up, I guess I'm mildly frustrated by that. How do I put that? How do I make sure that's included?
Through the chair, Mr. Cross, the way that you could request those to be included would be to essentially request that the case be postponed for a month so that you can review the comments and make another decision if that's what the board decided to do. I don't see any other way to get the comments on record and make a decision tonight. So,
Thank you. Any additional statements, Mr. Cross?
No, I guess if I have to make a movement that we postpone for a month to make sure that 15 public comments were not discarded.
Are you making that motion?
I am. I'm making a movement to postpone for a month to make sure that the 15 public comments that are not on record are addressed.
Is there a second? There is a second. Would you like to state your motion or speak to your motion?
Thank you. Yes, my suggestion is regards to S12048, that although I think it's very well plot out and very well considered, all that regardless, that the purpose of these hearings is in order to have adequate public testimony, and it seems that we're missing a large quantity of it that should at least be addressed or concerned, even if it's the same arguments that we've heard. I guess I would like an opportunity to review those concerns before we approve this. Thank you.
Thank you. Brent Cole.
I have a number of comments tonight, but I'm going to stick to this one issue because I'm not really sure. I have some concerns about us not having this in the proper record. If there's an appeal later on and there's some concern about why this wasn't made part of the record. Unlike some of the people that gave testimony today, though, I tend to choose to believe that, and I'm not as familiar with this process as many of you are, but that when an application comes in and there's some comments and maybe it gets postponed, it's not for the purpose of making it more difficult for the public to participate, but rather it's to reassess and to make the project better and then bring it back in a way that is better for the public. And I tend to believe that that's how this process works. I'm not the conspiracy theorist that believes that people are actively trying to hinder the public involvement. I tend to believe that they would have made it better. I am frustrated today. I will tell you that I don't know what the original plan was. I didn't know about the fact that there were a number of comments that were made. I specifically asked about comments when I first made my inquiry, and I was kind of led to believe that there were little to no comments. And I'm troubled by that, I guess. I don't know if we want to have a postponement over this, because it seems to me that the general issues that were raised at the first, or that's what we were told tonight, were wildlife, traffic, and water in the first set. And that seems to have been exactly the same issues that have been raised by the public comment tonight. And so I'm not sure that postponement would do anything other than give us the same issues that have been raised tonight, which I tend to believe have been successfully addressed by the proposal that we have in front of us and the comments that have been made by here. I guess what I'm saying is I'm kind of on the fence on whether we really need to postpone this to get those I'm going to wait to hear what the other people on the board say. I could go either way.
Thank you. Mr. Edmondson.
Through the chair, I don't intend to support the postponement of this case, although I'm frustrated with the fact that comments weren't incorporated in this packet because of the name change. My guess is it wasn't intentionally done that way to keep the comments from entering into the packet, but I feel like, as Mr. Cole stated, that we have heard what the issues are from Mr. and Mrs. Higbee, the Pews, Mr. White, Mr. Lynn, and Ms. Dobson. I think we got a pretty good coverage and have an understanding of what the issues are with this particular plat request. I also feel like staff's review of the case properly identified and outlined those concerns, and I believe they have addressed them in the conditions. Many are left to be resolved still. So based on that, I believe we have a good understanding of the case and of the platting action, the issues with the property, and feel like we can make a good decision on behalf of the community and not hold up a decision for the petitioner. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Porter.
So I see both sides of what we're doing here, but the one thing that I really have to emphasize is that we're following a process, and sometimes the process is a little bit bumpy. In this case, we have a case that is before us that was properly advertised. It was put on the public docket for us to review. The fact that there was another case very, very similar to this on a previous iteration, that the comments on that case may be similar, but since this is the plan that we have before us, we have to review this plan that is before us. So I share the concerns about not hearing about the public comment, but unless we're in error, this is a new case, and the comments that have been submitted are the comments that are submitted for this case. The previous comments may not, we could play devil's advocate, may not even apply, because this is the case that's before us. So seeing those comments could further muddy the water and take everybody's time, when in reality we just need to look at the case before us. So I guess I've just talked myself into not supporting the motion to postpone.
Thank you. Daniel Young.
Thank you. Through the chair, I also will not be supporting this motion for the same reasons that Mr. Trevor stated and Mr. Porter. And I would like to add, which is a little redundant, but to Mr. Porter's testimony, that the affidavit of posting was posted. There's an affidavit of posting on page 116 of the packet. And what this means to me is that when a notice like this goes out, anybody has time to respond, and those old postings, or not postings, but I'm sorry, those old comments are not necessarily relevant, that it's the public's responsibility to take this notice of posting and to respond if they wanted to respond. So it's really what we're doing is following the correct process, and it's the public who had the responsibility to resubmit their comments, and they didn't do it. When this was posted, it's my understanding, not only was the property posted, but there was a mailing that went out within a certain radius of the subdivision. So anybody who could have been impacted by this would have been notified by mail as well as it being posted on the property. So I believe that it would be inappropriate to postpone this hearing because people didn't respond as they should have if they wanted to.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, just if I may, the two respondents that did respond by mail were as a result of the notice of public hearing for Wednesday, May 6th. So those were sent out to them, and two respondents did respond to this posting. Just if there was 15 others who didn't respond, that shouldn't be our concern tonight. And I think we've addressed all the issues, so I'm not going to support this current motion.
Thank you. I would also add that there was no evidence presented at this hearing that there were any issues or other issues that might have been in the other statements. At least one author of the other statements was here, and she identified only the three issues that were here that we are notice of, and it's the merits of those issues and not the number of people that would speak that we're supposed to be paying attention to. So the mere fact that 15 people would add to what the 6 or 7 people who came tonight stated wouldn't change the merits of what it is they have to offer. Any other comments? So, any opposition to passing them?
No, you have to have a vote.
Okay, let's vote this. Yeah, we're calling the vote on the postponement. Yes. The motion fails. So now we return to the main motion on the floor, which is the approval of the plat for 18 months, as stated previously. And Brent Cole.
Well, I have two comments. First, again, I'm not as familiar with this, but I do give a lot of credence to the recommendations that staff gives us, and I'm troubled by the modification of Section 9 after staff specifically identified it as a necessary. And I always think that I'm confused because I thought when I asked the presenter if they had any problems with any of the conditions, I was told they didn't have any problems and that they were all acceptable. And then after that, I understand that they have a concern about number 10. And so I was a little bit confused by the response of the applicant in that respect. I'm of the opinion that we should defer to the staff unless there's some overriding opinion or reason not to. I certainly understand that Mr. Young's modification would allow the parties to work that out. I'm not in favor of that. But as to the rest of this, I first want to tell everybody, first, we appreciate everybody coming here. I speak for a living all the time, but I know how difficult it is to come up in front of a public forum and to give a presentation, many times ad lib, in front of a number of people that you've never met, and try to keep your composure and answer a lot of difficult questions. So but we need people like you to come forward and to be a part of the process. I hope that you're not, that you don't see this as as not a worthwhile cause. It is very good. I think, unfortunately, you come in once, maybe once in every 5 years. We sit on this board every month, and we hear many of the same comments from people. And so from your perspective, I want you to know we're not numb, but when you say this is a poor decision or a poor land use, it's not our job to make determinations on the proper use of land that a private developer puts forth. What our job is to make sure that they meet the minimum requirements under the municipal ordinances. And if you disagree with the minimum requirements, then what I would encourage you to do is become part of the process, which is become an assembly person. Run for office and change the ordinances. But we are stuck with the ordinances that we have. And so while I understand your frustration about maybe you dislike the land use that this person who's purchased the property and is going to invest a significant amount of money into a project at his risk, and he is going to provide, he or she or it is going to provide a significant amount of benefit to 21, 22 families that might not have that opportunity, and they're going to be able to experience, at least in part, some of the benefit that you've had living in the area. We have to take everything into consideration, not just your individual benefit or loss. We have to look at it from what we have in the ordinances. I don't mean to demean any of what you've said, but from our perspective, or from my perspective, the proposal that we have, and I echo my fellow board member, this is about as sophisticated as I've seen come through, and there's going to be a significant number of hurdles that this group is going to have to go through, and they've obviously already spent a lot more money just getting this proposal where it is than most of the proposals that we see come through here. So, stay a part of the process. Don't get disappointed. It's all part of the process, and we'll work with it from there. But I am in approval of everything else. I do have some concerns about the change, though. Thank you.
Thank you. Don Porter.
I was hoping to just make a friendly amendment to item, sorry, I lost my track, the radius, item 9, where they're adding a 20-foot radius on along 12 and 13 and include lot 6 as part of that.
I don't think we have a process for a friendly amendment. I think you have to make an amendment.
Okay.
Or propose, move to amend.
So I guess I'll propose an amendment.
State your motion.
So I propose an amendment to item 9 that we add lot 6 to the list of lots on item 9.
So it would read subdivision along lots 9, 12, and 13 should be radial?
Yes. Yes.
Is there a second? Dan Young has seconded your motion. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes. Given that the petitioner agrees with it, as I understand, and they just called it a drafting error, and that lot 1 carries the same configuration, we just want to make sure that it gets done. So that's why I've made the motion.
And that's lot 1, not lot 9?
Lot 1 has the same radial configuration along Spruce and Miranda, and lot 6 does not.
Trevor Edmondson.
I believe it's lot 6. I think you misstated and said lot 9.
Okay.
It's,
So it's
on item number 9, it needs to read, the right-of-way dedication along the southwest corner of the subdivision along lots 12 and 13 should be radial. And on the northwest corner of lot 6. Is that correct? Does that clarify it further, Mr. Porter?
Yeah. And Steve Abell.
Through the chair, I'd like to comment further on Mr. Cole's comment. A lot of the testimony tonight was concern over drainage and the water on the properties. I'm sure there's a lot that we didn't hear through the public notice of the 13 or 14 missing comments. And in that respect, I think a lot of those comments would have, been directed to drainage and water. And I don't think we should, deviate from staff's recommendation on number 10.
Thank you. Any other comments about the amendment affecting provision 9? So we'll call the vote on the amendment. That motion passes. So now we're back to the main motion on the floor for approval of the plat for 18 months. Any further comments? Don Porter.
So, as we stand now, with item 10 being resolved, I intend to support the motion as it stands, and I'll give you some reasons. The resolve with the MOA is going to net the same result. It's either going to get a 20 foot or a 10 feet, and the MOA is going to have the opportunity to say yes or no as to how wide it really is. So whether we leave it as a resolve, as stated by planning, or put it as a resolve, and if the designer comes up with an adequate design of the ditch through further design, and the MOA looks at it and they say, oh, all right, we feel we can maintain that, then they'll reduce it to 15 or 10 or whatever, or they'll leave it at 20. So in terms of item 10, I think we're going to net the same result, which is the public benefit. And if they narrow it up, it's better for the people that own the lots, because then they have a less impact. And that's kind of where Dan, I believe, was going. I intend to support the overall motion because we've heard a lot of testimony, and what we haven't heard really, because the landowner doesn't want to trump what they have to say, but the reality is that the landowner has every right to develop the land by the law of the land. The law of the land is Title 21, Municipality of Anchorage, and all the things that go along with it, the federal, the state, the local. We're sitting here at the local level. They're satisfying all of the planning requirements, and that's the duty of this platting board. So I believe, to use Brent's point, I believe that the process has been satisfied. There's been very diligent and distinct review of each item. Drainage is going to be made better, as stated. As an engineer, I can attest that the only thing that I would say is the downstream system adequate, and that's up to the municipality. So the storm drain is good. The traffic, while we were all talking here, I looked at the overall network. And what we're really seeing is that 68th has a lighted signal and 72nd doesn't, and people are trying to get to the best way to get out. And in this case, we're going to see a distribution. Some are going to go some way because that's closer, and some are going to go the other way that's closer. Is it going to be better or worse? I can't tell you. Is it going to improve safety and fire and police access? Absolutely. Because right now, Miranda's a dead end, and there's a whole network of dead end that the fire and police have to deal with when they go to respond to the emergency. So from a public safety, they're satisfying their requirements. Traffic, safety, drainage, the loss of wildlife, that's being addressed partly through the wetland process through the Corps of Engineers. Wetlands are precious within this town, and that's the Corps of Engineers' purview to say yes or no, you can develop those. Those are Class C developable wetlands. Those are the facts. We have to deal with the facts. So that's why I intend to support the motion.
Trevor Edmondson.
Through the chair, I'd just like to echo Mr. Porter's comments. Also, I'd like to comment on the proposed changes to item 10. I'm comfortable with that, and I'm generally supportive of that. I think it gives the petitioner the opportunity to prove his case to the municipal engineers and municipal reviewers. So I also intend to support the greater motion, and I just want to note that that this lot is R1, and that each lot within this proposed subdivision meets the minimum lot size and width required by the R1 zoning district. And that, from what I see from the plat that's been given to us tonight, that it's very consistent with what's happening around it. They're not deviating in any way from the surrounding neighborhood, and what they propose to do here is very consistent, in fact, with the surrounding neighborhood. So for those reasons, I intend to support the motion.
Thank you. Any other comments or findings? Seeing none, I call the vote. The motion passes. Any individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the Platting Board takes. Appeal of this decision or any of the conditions is governed by AMC 2111-304. The decision of the Board at the scheduled public hearing shall become final 7 calendar days after the date the decision is made on the record, unless a written request is submitted to the Planning Division prior to the expiration of the 7th day to prepare a written decision based upon the record made at the hearing, and the request is accompanied by a written notice of intent to appeal. Adoption of the written decisions by the Platting Board become the final appealable decision within 20 days of the final appealable decision. An interested party must file with the municipal clerk either a written motion alleging new evidence or changed circumstances pursuant to AMC 2111-503, or an appeal of the Board's final appealable decision per AMC 2130. Our next matter is case S12162, Checkpoint Subdivision, Spinelli Homes. And I'm looking for a motion to postpone this matter indefinitely. Dan Young has moved, and Steve Abel has seconded. Would you speak to your motion, Mr. Young?
Yes, I will support this motion, to postpone this case indefinitely.
Thank you. Any comments on the motion? I call the vote on that motion. The motion to postpone has we're waiting for your vote, Christina.
Whose?
Christina. Thank you. That motion passes. Next, there are no appearance requests, no other items, no other persons to be heard. Everyone has left us. The reports from the chair. The July meeting is scheduled to be July 1st. I know traditionally that has been bumped to later on, but a majority has asked to go ahead and have the hearing scheduled on the 1st. Any board member comments? Who would like to move to adjourn?
I have a, well, no, we've been here too long. I want to go another day. Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Trevor Edmondson has moved to adjourn, and Don Porter seconded. Seeing no opposition, that motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Cole. That's fine. I appreciate your input today.
See everybody later.